Alright, welcome back to the adventure of the life. This is Adventure Time through Theater Arts. So, let's have a recap. Firstly, we adventured from our movie board, where we discussed the history and elements of drama. So, where did drama begin? It began in Roman theater, from Greek plays and in medieval drama where they portrayed religious-based plays. Next, we also discussed about the Renaissance to Jacobean theater, where Renaissance focuses on revival of classical theater, and Elizabethan and Jacobean eras focused on the growth of theaters. Next, we also discussed modern and contemporary drama, where modern drama focuses on realism, like playwrights of Ibsen and Chekhov. Also, contemporary drama with diverse styles and global influences from different regions of the world. Next, we also discuss the elements of drama, which has 6 elements where plot, character, thought, diction, spectacle, and song are present. In the 3/4, we also discuss the key elements of drama. Next is the role of drama and theater. So, in this part of our adventure, we discuss the role of drama and the role of theater as well. Now, we also discussed in this part of our adventure the relationship between drama and theater, where we delve into how drama gives the story and ideas, while theater gives movement and emotion, where both of them are forms of theater arts. Next, we also discuss the importance and impact of both drama and theater, where they go beyond entertainment because they are used for education, communication, and culture. Next, we travel to the land of the Babonga, Hindi Kingdom, where we discuss theater as an art, socializing activity, and a way of learning. Here we discuss theater as an art, where the heart of theater teaches empathy, where we are called to become storytellers and teaches us to connect with people and reminds us that every story matters. We also discuss the core and social function of theater, where theater extends beyond entertainment. It also creates communities called comunitas, where we connect with each other. And it also is a mirror to our society. Next is how theater encourages or employs social cohesion and community building. Just as what we have said earlier, it builds communities. It bridges social divides, strengthens local identity, and builds social capital. In this kingdom, we also discussed how the audience experience or shared ritual and dialogue comes from theater and drama. So the theater as social factory, catalyst for conversation and collective ritual is discussed in this part. It also is discussed how theater and drama is a form of active participation and civic engagement, where theater is a rehearsal for reality because, as mentioned, it is a mirror of our society. It also amplifies marginalized voices, drives civic discourse as well. These are the documented benefits and impacts of theater. First, improves health and well-being, quantifiable engagement, and economic and social catalysts. Theater as a way of learning. In this part of our adventure, we talked about how theater can be used to learn. So theater has three ways to be used in learning. First, it deepens understanding, enhances communication, and promotes collaboration. Now let us go through the adventure to the grasslands. Here we discussed and talked about drama as learning medium. In connection to theater in learning, we also talk about drama as a learning medium, where drama is used to enhance understanding, act out stories, let students express themselves by building communication skills and encourage creativity and imagination. So drama is important in learning because it allows us to connect and be in character. It allows us to connect and embody certain aspects of real world that we did not experience right now. It allows us to be connected without the factor of distance. Next, we have used examples of using drama in the classroom. So in this part of our adventure, we talked about how drama is used in teaching. First is role playing, next is improvisation, tableau or freeze frames, story dramatization, and simulation. Next is we discussed about creative drama. So creative drama is a form of informal drama, right? Yes. We also discussed how it is used in academic and social growth. So firstly, it builds communication, integrates subjects like math, science, and social studies, encourages confidence, empathy, creativity in students, and helps learners discover new ideas and express themselves freely. So why is creative drama valuable? We also talked about this. It is valuable in learning because it helps learners imagine and enact scenarios. They are not limited to just like how in drama, where they follow a formal and structured setting, where it is built upon them. So creative drama allows learners to imagine and enact scenarios, which allows them to understand concepts, values, and human experience. It also promotes social skills, collaboration, and encourages critical thinking and creativity. Now let us go to the Ice Kingdom, where our penguins and Ice King will follow through our adventure. So, let us start our formal discussion. Adventure
Time!
Welcome to Ice Kingdom. It is I, Ice King, the ruler of Ice Kingdom. So now let me call my penguins to begin your adventure.
Cute.
Adventure
Time!
Okay, so for the continuation of our last topic, for our topic last meeting in which we discussed about the role play, and the role play we discussed about the role play. So now we will be going to delve into the core components of role play. But before that, let us recall first what is role play. So anyone can answer what is role play? No one? Okay, Marian. What is role play?
Role playing means acting like someone else. It is when you pretend to be a teacher, a mother,
Tama na.
Role play. Mariel is right. Role play is when we take into a role or character and act a situation out. Yeah, and act a situation out just like a play or movie, but unlike acting on actual stage, role play is more focused on real life situation or scenarios. So that is the gist of role play. So now let's go on to the 5 core components of role play. So first we have the roles. It is the characters participants take on. So it is the role or part on the play, the character, the person that we are portraying or embody. So for example, when we are doing role play here inside the school, because our role could be a teacher or a student, or if the scenario is about a family dynamics, then our role could be a mother, a father figure, a son or daughter, just like Mariel said earlier. So the second one is the scenario or the situation or the problem to act out. So what is happening during the play, the plot or the flow of the action. So it could be solving a conflict or a conversation between people, or it could also be a character portrayal that leads us to a moral lesson in the end. Then the third one, we have the interaction or the communication between participants, how we construct a dialogue between our co-characters in a play. So if you can recall what I have said last meeting, it is very important because in this way we are able to, since role play is done without proper preparation, it is most
Impromptu, yeah.
That way we are constructing our own dialogue. So that means that we are using our mind creatively and critically. Then the third one, we have feedback and the briefing, the reflection stage after the activity. So for example, if the role play is done inside the classroom, the teachers could give a positive feedback to students, what was done well, or a constructive feedback, or suggesting what are the things that needs to be improved, or a reflective feedback, or the teachers could give could share their observations and insights about their performance in order for them to enhance their performance for the next time. Then the last one, we have learning objectives, the goals that guide what skills or attitudes to develop. So in doing a role play, we have a goal. What is our purpose, or what we aim to accomplish? What is the purpose why we are doing that role play? And also, what are the needs to develop, especially about skills and attitudes in order for our action or our play to be successful and effective. So those are the 5 core components of role play: the role, scenario, interaction, feedback, and briefing, and learning objectives. So now I will call on the next penguin to discuss more about the role play.
Pleasant morning to each and every one. Are you ready for our adventure for today?
Yes.
So, this morning I will be taking you to our journey of understanding the types, purposes, and benefits of the play. So we have 3 types of role play: instructional role play, simulation role play, and planned or spontaneous role play. So first, instructional role play. This type of role play is mainly used in classroom setting or university or training program. So this type of role play enables the students or the learners inside the classroom to be able to practice their communication and social interaction with their peers as well as with their teachers. For example, the students of English 2A are tasked to act out or portray a situation where there is a teacher and there are students having conversation or communication, so that in that way they are able to practice or to improve their communication skills. The second one is simulation role play. So this role play copies a workplace situation. So what we can observe in our surroundings, so we can act it out or portray that kind of situation. So it often takes place in a office. It could be customer service or conflict management, wherein it could be play in workplace or in real life situations. So for example, in a as customer service, where there are customers who complains about their services. So the employees or the workers in that specific place are can act out or can portray something that can happen in reality. For example, they can portray a customer being frustrated about the service. In that way, they can foresee or they can manage and handle the customer well. And the last is plan or spontaneous role play. So from the word plan, so it takes script, role assignment, and etc. So this type of role play is more it takes time because the students or the participants or the role players are given the time to plan out or to make script and to assign roles sa ilang role play. So, for example, the English 2 are given task by their teacher to act or portray the life of these English students in Central Mindanao University. So the role players are going to make scripts. They're going to assign tasks to each of their members to be able to successfully portray the given scenario. So that's three types of role play. So three types of role play are instructional role play, simulation role play, and management planned or spontaneous role play. Now we are down to the purposes of role play. First, it provides a safe environment to practice real interaction. As we all know that portraying or role playing provides a safe environment because we are free to act or portray something or someone that we can eventually correct, or if we are mistaken, we are able to improve our mistakes. And then the second one is develop empathy by understanding others' perspective. So doing role playing, we are able to understand different perspectives because we are going to switch roles. For example, you as a parent or a family member, as a child, as an older sister, older brother, a teacher, or student. So in that way, we are exchanging roles. So we are able to understand how it feels to be a parent, how it feels to be a student, how it feels to be a older sister or younger sister. And the third one is applies theory to real situations. So one of the purpose of role play is that it bridges the connection, the gap of the prior knowledge and the future knowledge, because what we have learned during the role play, we can be able to apply it to the real situations. What we have learned while doing the role play, we can apply it to reality. So the third, now let us talk about the benefits of role play. First, it encourages active participation and engagement. So each of the member or each of the role player in a scenario are given the task to participate, and they're being engaged. They're not just they are not just listening, but they are moving. They are thinking. They are involved in a role play. Third, second, it improves communication, teamwork, and critical thinking. So as what I've said, that the role player, the participants are working together towards achieving the goal of successful portraying of a characters or a situation or scenario. They are using their mind to think of what is the next situation or scenario that they're going to portray. Next is builds confidence and emotional understanding. Through role play, we're able to grasp different ideas. We can express our ideas clearly, and we can understand different perspectives in real life. The last one, it provides immediate feedback for reflection and improvement. So obviously, after the role play, teachers or our peers leave feedback for us to improve what it should be improved. And of course, we can identify our strengths and weaknesses. And that would be all for my journey. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning everyone. Now let us proceed to the process of a role play. So a typical role play follows 5 processes. We have preparation, explanation, enactment, debriefing, and reflection. So first we have preparation. This is where the scenarios are created and the roles are assigned to the participants. Next is the explanation. This is where the facilitator is going to explain or clarify the objectives and rules of the activity to ensure that everyone understands their part. Next is enactment. This is the main part of the role play where the participants are going to act a given role based on the scenario. Next is the debriefing. This happens after the enactment. This is where the group are going to discuss what happened, what was learned, and they're going to share their constructive feedback. And lastly, we have the reflection. The next experiences real-life learning. So after the role play, this is where the participants are going to reflect what they have experienced and learned during the role play into their real-life situations and learnings. So next, we have the role of facilitation. So the facilitator plays a vital role or an important part in making the role play successful and effective. They're the ones who are responsible in deciding the meaningful scenarios and make sure that they align to the objectives. They also take part during the enactment where they guide the participants and ensure that the environment is safe and secure for everyone. Next, they're the ones who will lead the debriefing session after the role play, giving their constructive feedback to help the participants reflect and improve. Now let us delve into the evolution of application. So the role play has evolved significantly over time. It was originally used or mainly used in education and therapy, but now it is used in different fields. For example, we have corporate training. This helps employees practice their leadership skills, their negotiation, and their customer service skills. For medical education, this allows students to practice their patient interactions and improve their empathy. Next is virtual learning. This shows us, or the role play is now done through online simulation and digital platforms. And this shows us how powerful and adaptable role playing is in today's learning environment. So role play remains one of the most dynamic and effective tools in learning, for it combines action, reflection, and empathy, making lessons more engaging and meaningful for learners. So now let me call up the next adventurer to explore the map of food.
Okay, so adventure time! So now let's now dive into the next topic, which is the improvisation and pantomime. But first, let us have an activity, a short and quick activity. So I want to have at least a one representative.
One.
At least one. No one?
No one?
Just Israel. Okay. So we have a challenge for you. So since our first topic is improvisation, so we prepared a line. The line is pagod na ako. So how do you say normally this line?
Pagod na pagod ako.
Okay, that's good. Now let's see. How do you say this line when you are happy?
Maganda ako.
Sad. How about sad?
Wait lang. Pagod na ako.
Happy. How about when all of our instructors give a lot of activities?
Pagod na ako!
Okay, give your hands. We have a prize from Ice King.
Wow!
Come and take your prize.
Ice Judy ay.
Thank you for participating.
Wow, ice cream.
Now, let's go the adventure of the land of improvisation. Let me call my fellow patrons to discuss the improvisation.
Wait, wait. I'll have first line for you.
Good day, everyone. I am Gunther, and will be talking about improvisation and pantomime. So let's start with improvisation. Improvisation is simply called improv, where actors create scene, characters, and dialogue on the spot without using a script. Modern improvisation began in the 20th century mainly because of two famous people, Vilas Pauline and Kate Johnston. Vilas Pauline, known as mother of improvisation theater, and introduced theater games that helped actors to become more creative and spontaneous. Meanwhile, Kate Johnston, who wrote improvisation and theater in 1979, focused on the importance of spontaneity, storytelling, and status quo in acting. Their work made improvisation an important part of acting lessons and performances all over the world. Improvisation also follows some basic principles that guide performers during a scene. The first one is the yes and principle. This means accepting your partner's idea, which is the word yes, and adding something new to it, which is the word and. It helps build teamwork and trust. Next is listening and awareness. Listening and awareness. Being active and responding naturally to what the partner does. We have spontaneity. Spontaneity, which means not overacting, overthinking, but reacting and acting freely. Another one is commitment. Even if you make things up, you should still perform with confidence and with emotion. And lastly, storytelling. Because a good improv scene should still have a clear story that connects with the audience. This principle makes improvisation fun, meaningful, and great way to develop creativity, confidence, and teamwork. And that's the essence of improvisation. Next, my king will continue our discussion by explaining its types, forms, and educational importance.
So, thank you, Doctor. So now let's talk about the types and forms of improvisation. There are three types and forms of improvisation. First, short form improvisation. It involves structured games or pre-comedic scenes, often seen in television programs like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Example, a group of students act out funny short scenes like me ordering a food at a strange restaurant without a script. Short form improvisation is quick and fun. It helps students to think fast and be more creative while making others laugh. The second one is the long form improvisation. It features extended scenes that build into a cohesive narrative, such as the Harold format. So what is the Harold format anyway? It is a type of long form improvisation where performers create a full story or series of connected scenes based on one suggestion from the audience. So, long form improvisation lets students build longer story and develop their characters while practicing teamwork. The third one is the applied improvisation. Applied improvisation is used in education, psychology, and corporate settings to enhance communication, creativity, and social interaction. Example, during class, students improv activities to learn how to work together and speak confidently. And now let's talk about the educational importance of improvisation. So, improvisation develops a key to the first century skills such as critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. In language and theatrical education, it enhances verbal fluency, spontaneity, and confidence. Studies also shows that improvisational training improves divergent thinking and creative problem solving. So now let me call my next favorite to discuss about what is pantomime all about.
Okay, adventure time! Okay, now let's dive into the ice scope of pantomime.
Pantomime.
But before that, we'll have a short quick activity first before delving into the highlight of pantomime. So the mechanics of the activity will be Mark and friends will be acting out a scene, and I will be calling two representatives. This will be group 1 and this will be group 2. And each representative would interpret what the story or what they're acting out. Yes?
Yes.
Adventure
Time!
Let the action begin.
Uy, di makita.
Okay, got. So, I have got one representative from group 1. Stay, and for group 2, Maria. Okay, stay. Upon watching the scene that they have portrayed without saying a word, what can you infer or imply from the scene that they have portrayed?
It could be like the start of the like the blooming of love.
Okay, so the point here is blooming of love. What about the group 2? Okay, that's the correct answer. Love at first sight. So that activity or that short activity is
Sa
the
mukha.
definition of pantomime. But before that, let the two representatives have their prizes from the ice. Ice cream.
Wala na, guys. Wala mo.
Ah,
Ayun, pre.
Wow!
Okay, thank you for participating. Now let's dive into the ice globe of pantomime. So pantomime is basically a silent theatrical art in movement
Gestures and facial expression to tell a story.
So pantomime is interchangeably with the word mime, and it is a theatrical form or play that heavily relies on the bodily movement, gesture, and posture, facial expression to tell a story without saying a word. And this focuses on non-verbal communication rather than using verbal communication, and it highlights the ability of the actor or the actress to talk or to tell a story without using a word. So that's the essence of pantomime. Now that we have defined what is pantomime, let us trace back the historical background on why pantomime worked. So pantomime originally stated in ancient Greece and Rome, where performers called pantomimi performed using gestures and dancing. And later on, in the 18th and 19th centuries, it evolved into a silent storytelling in Europe and France. And in the 20th century, the pantomime was revived into modern mime by these two notable figures, which is Adrien Decroix and Marcel Marceau. Adrien Decroix is the one who founded or posited the notion of corporeal mime. When we say corporeal mime, this is the ability of the actor to tell a story without using a word and heavily relying on his body movement and gestures, and which requires clarity, precision, and spatial awareness. Next, we have Marcel Marceau. Marcel Marceau is the most famous mime artist. Why? Because he is known for his character Beat the Clown, which expresses universal human emotions like happy, sad, anger, and the likes through silence or through the use of body movements. So that's the historical background of pantomime. Now let's proceed to the key elements and techniques when doing a pantomime. First is that we have the expression through movement. So this is just simply the communication process of telling a story without the usage of words, but instead using non-verbal communication like bodily movements, gestures, and postures. Next, we have the illusionary techniques. Illusionary techniques is just the ability of the mind. This is just the creating invisible objects or environments. So the gist of illusionary techniques is making the invisible visible. So this is the ability of the actor or the actress to make an illusion or of interacting into invisible objects, just like a wall, a rope, and a box. So that's illusionary.
Wow.
We have the third one, we have the clarity and precision. Clarity and precision is the heart of pantomime. Why? Because in order for you to be an effective
Clear, consistent,
pantomime
and
actor,
for
you have to
understanding.
be meticulously or truly study the movement or the gestures that you are portraying in order for the audience to get the story that you are portraying. Next, we have the characterization. So characterization is simply the embodiment of the characters that you are portraying with in order for you to be an effective mime. Next, we have the emotional authenticity. So, we only know pantomime doesn't require spoken words or verbal communication to portray such emotion. So that is why emotional authenticity is the expression of true feelings without words. So dapat in this pantomime, you are able to express the emotions that you are trying to provoke or evoke with your audience using the bodily movement. So those are the key elements and techniques which plays a crucial role in playing a pantomime. Next. Now let's delve to the purpose and educational importance of pantomime. So first, it develops non-verbal communication, body control, and state, and emotional awareness. Ultimately, pantomime highlights the power of physical storytelling, and it enhances spatial awareness, timing, gesture, sensitivity, and it builds expressive confidence in performance and communication. So basically, pantomime highlights the power of non-verbal communication, that even without words, we can still told or tell a story. And in the field of speech and theater articulation, this highlights the spatial awareness, timing, clarity, and precision, which are all vital in an efficient and effective stage play. Now to interlead between the improvisation and pantomime, where I call on my king, Ice King, to relate these two fields. Adventure
Time.
Thank you, Queen. So, the relationship between improvisation and pantomime. Although these improvisation and pantomime complement each other as a core theatrical techniques, both rely on imagination, creativity, and physical expression. So, improvisation focuses on spontaneous, verbal, and situational creativity, while pantomime emphasizes controlled physical storytelling without speech. Together, they foster a performer's ability to communicate effectively, adapt to unexpected situations, and connect with audience using both words and movements. And that will be all for the discussion from the Ice Kingdom. So now, let me call my friend to explore the land of Class X
Adventure Time. Sa muka, oy, napay pa.
Oh my God! We're not gonna carry rocks, but we'll discuss to you the scripted and non-scripted performance. So welcome to our adventure in the Cloud Kingdom. I am Princess Asia. Okay, so in this, wait lang ha. Okay. So in this discussion, we will know the crucial role of performance in human expression, in bringing emotions, stories, and ideas to life. So, generally, we have two main categories of performances. We have the scripted performance and non-scripted performance. First, the scripted performance. Okay, so the scripted performance follows a written scripts written or prompted by a playwright. In this, the actors practice their lines, rehearse their movement, and perform exactly according to what is written or being directed. So the scenes, dialogues, and movements are all planned ahead of time to make sure that everything is consistent and well performed. On the other hand, quiet please and listen to my discussion. Non-scripted performances does not rely on any written scripts. Instead, actors use their creativity and quick thinking to build the story as they perform. So, this type of performance is often called improvisation or simply improv, just like what we did last week with Sir Dar. So, so dialogues, the actions are on the spot based on a theme or situation or even the suggestion of the audience. So to discuss with you the types of scripted performance, may I call on Princess Joanna?
Alright, thank you so much, Princess Angel, for this very comprehensive and informative adventure. Since you know already the definition, or since you explored already the definition of scripted and non-scripted performances, at this juncture, let's dive to its types. As you can see here in our presentation, these are the types of scripted performances. First, we have the theater plays. Now, theater plays is a traditional stage performances that use a complete written text. That means that the actors memorize their lines, follow stage directions, and rehearse before performing in front of an audience. Example includes classical works such as Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. So this type of performances focuses more on timing, action, and emotion. Second, we have the film or TV dramas. So in this type of performance, every scene is guided by a screenplay where it contains dialogues, actions, and camera directions. Every scene in film or TV dramas are recorded on camera. Examples are television series, soap operas, or movies. Next is we have a radio drama. So a radio drama is a scripted performance that is heard instead of being seen. So in essence, the actors use their voice, sound effects, and music to bring the story into life. So here in radio drama, all script is pre-written and practiced before broadcasting or recording. Next, we have reader's theater. Now, in this type of performance, the actors read directly from their script instead of memorizing their lines. So they focus more on expressing emotion using their voice instead of using props and costumes. Then, reader's theater are usually common or usually used in a classroom or workshops to practice or enhance reading and interpretation. Lastly, we have the role play or scripted role play. Now, I know you are quite familiar with these topics because we've already tackled this one. So role play is a short and planned performance. So performers act out real life situations or given scenarios to portray or using a pre-written dialogue. And then role play is usually common in classrooms to build communication. So those are the types of those are the types of scripted performances. Now, do you want to know what are the types of non-scripted performances?
Yes.
Yes, let us call Princess Angel, I mean.
Thank you, Princess Juliana. Now, let us talk about the types of non-scripted performances. So, first is improvisational theater, or as mentioned earlier, improv. So, in here, performers create the dialogue, the characters, and the story on the spot or spontaneously. So, an example of this was mentioned earlier by our Ice King, the American show called Whose Line Is It Anyway, wherein the host will provide the scene or the script that they should do, and then the comedians will then create a joke on the spot. And then next is reality TV shows. In here, the participants act naturally without a written script. So in reality TV shows, it features real people instead of actors. So an example of this
chit chat. Charis.
And then we also have debates or spontaneous speeches. So still no memorized lines, therefore the responses are extemporaneous. So in here, in debates or spontaneous speeches, the speaker will present their dialogues, not dialogues, their arguments, opinions, or rebuttals on the spot. So of course, a very famous example is school debates or impromptu speeches. And then lastly, we have street theater or devised improvisations. In here, it is performed still without scripts, and it often responds to the audience or social context. And this street theater or devised improvisation is performed in public spaces, and it is often interactive. That's why it responds to the audience or the social context. And a famous example of this could be a group of people performing an environmental awareness skit on a park or a flash mobs. Are you familiar with flash mobs? Yeah. So flash mobs is also one of the examples of street theater. So these are the 5 types of non-scripted performances. Ang sagalit ko,
Improvisational theater, reality shows, talk show or interviews, debates and spontaneous speeches, and street theater.
So they are easily understood, no? Dali na siya ma-remember. So with that, I will now return our favor to Princess Angel. Adventure
Time!
Okay, before we wrap up our discussion about the scripted and non-scripted performances, let me ask somebody to give me an example of a scripted performance and one for non-scripted performance. Okay? Yeah, we will give prizes, but it is not as grand as the Ice Kingdom prizes, but still, yeah. Would like to volunteer. Another hand, please, since Israel and Mariel are considered to give answers. So nobody is raising their hand. I will call Pinitakan the stage. Okay, so give me one example of scripted performance and one for non-scripted performance.
For scripted is I think maybe na mga review dramas. For non-scripted is kana public speech, kana mga debates.
Okay, let's give Ronald a round of applause. Okay, please come here in front to claim your prize, Ronald. Okay, another question. So, what is the difference between scripted and non-scripted performance? May I ask,
Para na ko'y prize. Charis.
Wala na si Israel, si Robert daw. Ay, reporter man ang ko. Bisa si, kanasay mo likod, na girl.
Jaira.
Jaira. Okay. Sige. Explain the difference between scripted and non-scripted performance.
Scripted, by the word itself, scripted, it has a script, the text itself, and when you say not scripted, example of this is impromptu, like, yeah.
Okay, give me your prize here. Okay, thank you so much. So to finally end our discussion about the scripted and non-scripted performance. Scripted performance is again guided, planned, and rehearsed based on a written script, while non-scripted is it follows or like it relies on the creativity and quick thinking of the actor. So each kind of performance showcases different skills like discipline and precision for the scripted performance and creativity and quick thinking for the non-scripted one. So I hope you understood our simple discussion about the scripted and non-scripted performance. I will now call on our friend to discuss to you the puppetry and mask making.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Justin is here, and today I will be your master puppeteer. Now, before you ask, yes, it is a soft topic. Don't judge and don't worry because his
my co-reporter. Now, can you introduce yourself for us? Good morning, everyone. My name is Sophie, and today I am Justin's co-reporter. Ang butok, manuna ako diri. Ngayon ang pumipubos. Tapos, papadyo pinaba, kasi padyo ang pang. Yun sa gusto mo tapos, sir. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, without further ado, let's move on to puppetry. Okay, the word puppet actually comes from the Latin word pupa, which means doll. But a puppet is not just a doll. For instance, a girl is playing with her doll as if it were a baby. But that doesn't mean, or that doesn't give a puppet show. But if the girl has an audience, her parents, an example, and she makes the doll walk along the top of the table and act the part of the baby, then she is presenting a primitive puppet show. Now, a puppet, it is something that comes to life through a puppeteer, and that's me. It is basically a puppet is anything we bring to life, like this song, right, Sati? Yes. So, now, let's proceed to the word puppetry. Now, the word puppetry is the making and manipulating puppets for the use of theatrical production. Now, in simple terms, it's when humans make an object like this one, or like this one, like who can make it alive and to entertain an audience. So that is puppetry. Now let's proceed to the types of puppetry. Now first up, we have the rod puppet. Rod puppet, it is a paper constructed without shoulders, arms, or legs and manipulated by one or more rods. So an example for that is this one. As you can see, it is a full-length puppet that is controlled by rods. Next up, we have the shadow puppet. It is a flat, two-dimensional puppet designed to cast a shadow or form a silhouette on a white screen. So it is a cut-out human form or animal form or any form that can produce a shadow. So this is an example of a shadow puppet, and I guess everyone knows it already about shadow puppet. Next up, we have the hand puppet. Hand puppet, it is a puppet that fits over the puppeteer's hand much like a mitten and is manipulated by a puppeteer's fingers inside the puppet's head and hands. So basically, a hand puppet is like this one. So your thumb and your pinky finger will be the one that will control the hands of the puppet, and the rest of the finger will be the one that controls the head of the finger. So next up, we have movable mouth puppet. It is the hand puppet with a movable mouth. So it is kind of similar with the hand puppet, but the movable mouth puppet doesn't have arms. A great example for that is Saki, this one. So the only one that is moving is its mouth. So that is the movable mouth puppet. Next, we have the marionette. It is a puppet manipulated by strings connecting a control rod or paddle to the moving body parts. So this is an example of a marionette. So a simple marionette has 9 strings, one attached to each of one leg, one hand, one shoulder, and ears for the head movement, and also for the base of the spine for bowing. So it is considered one of the most difficult puppet to control because it requires mastery and precision for you to execute this kind of puppet. Next up, lastly, we have the full body puppet. It is a puppet worn over the puppeteer's head and body like a costume. So the best example for this one is Arturo from the agriculture and the eagle from the CBM. So you can wear it, so that is considered as the full body puppet. So those are the 6 types of puppets. The first one, we have the rod puppet, shadow puppet, hand puppet, movable mouth puppet, marionette, full body puppet. Now, so to wrap up, puppetry is more than just a doll. It's storytelling, creativity, performance, all in one. And don't forget, it's a great way to start talking without moving your lips. And yeah, exactly, because Whether it's with a rod, a string, a shadow, and a sock, and a full body costume, puppetry lets our imagination come alive. So always remember, in puppetry, you're never too old to play pretend. Now that is for my part. Thank you everyone. Next.
So before I delve into mask making, I would like to ask a question. What do you think mask making is all about? Would anyone like to answer? Just Rael.
Okay, so for me, mask making is about making something that you can use to cover your face for different types of things. For example, masquerade parties, performances, even for covering if you're a criminal.
Yes, that is indeed correct. So, mask making is the process of designing and creating masks that are used in performances. These masks help actors portray emotions more clearly, portray different characters, and even represent deeper ideas or symbols. Now, historically, masks have been a big part in many theater traditions. I have here an example of a mask. So, these masks here, is it? Okay, so these masks is from the Greek theater. So, in Greek theater, their masks are often large to be able to be visible from a distance. They also have inbuilt voice amplification, so their voices are amplified to be heard from a distance as well. They also often represent gods, demons, heroes, or slaves. And they are also exaggerated in their emotions to show their anger, their joy, and the other emotions. So next, we have, there's also the masks from the Japanese non-paper, which are carved in wood. They often also represent gods, demons, women, and warriors. And they are also exaggerated in their emotions to show their emotions. Okay, so lastly, we have the commedia dell'arte, which often represent their social status, their personal trait, and their emotional state. And that is for the mask making. So next we have the purpose and importance of mask making. So first, it is character transformation. Masks help actors step into different roles and personalities. Next, the expression and symbolism. They often express emotions and ideas that words cannot fully express. And lastly, the cultural connection, since it introduces students to a world theater tradition and artistic expression. And that is all for the mask making. Now for the next slide.
Ay. Ay, may pa ganyan sila. Makita. Masunog mo, Charis.
Go on a journey and spread the name of knowledge. Tell everyone about the cultural.
Welcome to Fire Kingdom Adventure
Time!
This is the last topic, guys. Bear with us. Multiculturalism means the presence and coexistence of diverse culture within a society where each retains its identity and traditions. Multiculturalism refers to a society where people from different cultural backgrounds live together while keeping their own beliefs, traditions, and practices. It is not about making everyone the same, but it's about the respect and valuing the differences. In simple terms, multiculturalism encourages unity in diversity. It helps people to understand and appreciate each other's culture instead of judging and disrespecting. It helps build an environment of inclusion, respect, and harmony. To everyone feels represented and accepted. In drama, it becomes important because it allows to show different voices, stories, and traditions to be shown and celebrated on stage. Now, connection between drama and multiculturalism. Drama reflects human experiences and society's diversity. So drama shows real-life stories and experiences, and it helps us to understand how how diverse our world is. Second, through plays and performances, multiculturalism in drama allows audiences to explore and appreciate different traditions, beliefs, and lifestyles. So watching multicultural plays helps people to learn about and value the uniqueness of other cultures. Lastly, it helps break stereotypes, build empathy, and celebrate cultural identity. Multicultural drama challenges misconceptions and creates understanding in order to celebrate cultural identity. Now, let me call my fellow players to discuss the next topic.
So good morning once again, everybody.
Good morning.
Are you ready to meet Her Highness, the Flame Princess? Yes. But before you meet her, meet me first. I am Flambo, a fairy creature of the Fire Kingdom. I may be small, young, and cute. I have a lot of things to tell to you. And I was tasked to explain the importance and benefits of multiculturalism in dramas. Earlier, my fellow flame, Jessa, have explained to you what is multiculturalism in drama. This time, I am going to show you the importance of it and its benefits. So one of the example of this is the story of two Ipoy Imagto, or this is a film in 2017, a story of a Imanobo couple in their journey to their death. It actually means the right to cancer. This is the story of how they have survived the discrimination and all the things that was being deprived from them by the military. So this is an example of being represented, or they have represented their tribe in the field of drama. So first, in the importance is it gives representation or voice to underrepresented cultural groups. As what I have said earlier, is about representing a culture, a group of people, often those who are not represented well, mostly in the society. So in my example earlier, it's the Manobo tribe in Mindanao. Next, education. It teaches us respect and appreciation for diversity. So by watching or by witnessing drama in multicultural state, we are being taught how to respect their traditions, their norms, and etc. And then creativity, it encourages mixing cultural styles and traditions in storytelling. Since it talks about different cultures, it also has it also gives the directors, the writers, and all the people involved in a drama the creativity on how they are going to combine all this. And then social awareness addresses issues like identity, discrimination, and inclusion. Since this drama often reflects the lives of the people in the community, so it addresses these certain issues. Because, and in my example earlier, the Manomo tribe, they are often discriminated, they are often being not part of the community. They are not seen in the community. They are being underrepresented. So this drama will help us to be aware of these certain social issues. And then the benefits of multiculturalism in drama. First, it empowers the minority groups to express their culture proudly. So since they are being represented, if I can remember what Jezrael said in our previous meeting, it is so nice to be represented in a drama. It gives us this kind of happiness for being represented in a drama. And then empathy, audiences understand and respect different perspectives. So by watching this kind of drama, we feel the feelings of this certain group of people in our society. And then innovation combining cultural elements makes drama richer and more exciting. As what I have mentioned also earlier, that by this kind of drama, our directors are the people behind the scenes are making it more innovative in crafting such drama. And the last is the relevance. It covers global issues such as migration and cultural identity. So it is very relevant to our society. It is relatable. We can relate to it because it talks about the realities in the society as well. So that is the importance and benefits of drama. And now, prepare yourselves because we are going to welcome Her Highness, the Flame Princess. A round of applause, please.
Thank you, my little flames. Now let's talk about the challenges in multiculturalism and multicultural theater. First, we have cultural appropriation. This happens when people use elements of other cultures such as clothes, music, and tradition without respecting or understanding the culture. For example, when some people make fun of their culture, and when some people make fun of their tribe's costume because of its patterns and color and etc., this might be disrespectful for the tribe. And worse, they can sue you or what they call as sala. Next is resource inequality. This means that not all cultural groups have the same access when it comes to funding, training, or performance venues. This often means that minority groups or a local community struggles to share their arts to the larger groups. Next is tokenism. This means that this happens when cultural inclusion is only for appearances and not because tokenism is all about the inclusion for show, not for equality. They just only show that theater for appearances. For example, when people use their culture for the show, not because they respect or understand their culture. Lastly is balance. This means that when one culture is combined to other culture, when combining different cultures in one performance, it can be difficult to keep the authenticity of each culture while still creating harmony in production. The goal of multiculturalism is to celebrate diversity, not erasing their cultural identities. Now let's talk about the applications in education. First is perform plays from different cultures. So teachers and students can perform or explore different cultures around the world. Second is collaborate with cultural groups. And second is use traditional music, costumes, and language in performances. So teachers can use different music, costumes, and languages when they perform theater to preserve or give pride to their culture. Third is collaborate with cultural groups to learn authentic practices. This means that when the school can invite local cultural groups to teach traditional music, dances to the students so that they will the students can learn traditional dances. Next is discuss the values and lessons shown in multicultural plays. This means that teachers can make the students learn about the lessons that the multicultural plays perform in so that they will know the values and lessons of the plays. Now, let's call another adventure to conclude this adventure.
Adventure time! But we have no time for another adventure. So now let us proceed with our conclusion. So we have concluded that theater is not a simple art form. It bridges us together as a community and as a society as a whole. There is so much beauty in theater because we are able to be educated, we're able to develop empathy and collaborate together as human beings. And therefore, our last message to this section is to appreciate theater, love theater, because it's more than just an art, it's life, wherein we are able to learn so much about the aspects of living and what humanity truly stands for. Because there is so much adventure left for our future, and the future is already within reach. Never give up and padayon, because together we shall embark on a great adventure. Once again, adventure time!